Ireland v Springboks. 5 takeaways as South Africa show why they are clear of the rest, but officials get it horrifically wrong yet again. Following a 24-13 victory for the Springboks over Ireland on Saturday, here's our 5 takeaways from the huge end-of-year test at the Aviva Stadium. The top line. The Springboks cemented their position as the best side in the world at the moment, with a brutal display of power against an ill-disciplined Ireland side in a mind-boggling contest full of incident. In truth, the scoreline did not do the game justice, with South Africa dominating the majority of the clash. Only an impressive Irish defense and sheer bloody-mindedness prevented the visitors from winning by a more comfortable margin. The world champions were in control from minute 1 to 80, with only one desperate last-gasp attack from the hosts potentially putting doubt in the mind of the Boks. Even Dan Sheehan's try when Ireland were down to 13 men did not deter the tourists, who had opened a 12-0 advantage through Damian Willems and Cobus Reinach tries. South Africa simply reset, earned a penalty try and left Andy Farrell's men down to 12 men by the break after yellow cards for Sam Prendergast, Jack Crowley and Andrew Porter, which followed an earlier red to James Ryan. Although Prendergast kept Ireland just about within touching distance via a pair of three-pointers, Sacha Fainberg-Mngomezulu's try was enough for the Boks to continue their unbeaten record on their Northern Hemisphere, and once again prove that Rassie Erasmus' outfit remains the team to beat. More high-tackle controversy. We just don't understand how those in charge are not getting to the right outcome. There is a framework to follow from World Rugby, one which we think is relatively simple, but last week in this, the officials have been horrifically wrong. With the Franco Mostert incident, it was quite obvious that the initial contact was on the chest, and while it was an always illegal action, there is no way it should have been a permanent red card. Cue outrage from Springboks fans, and with it, the usual conspiracy theory that World Rugby are biased against the back-to-back world champions. Fast forward a week, and they were the beneficiary of a decision which, like the Mostert one, we cannot quite fathom. You would hope the furore did not affect the officiating, but it was bizarre how Sacha Fainberg-Mngomezulu's tucked shoulder into Tommy O'Brien's chest head area only resulted in a penalty. At the very least, it should have been a yellow card and a bunker review given that the action was, as the phrase goes, always illegal, a saying which has become rather well known to rugby fans over the past couple of weeks. The officials were probably right that the initial contact was on the chest before it rode up towards O'Brien's head, thus reducing the severity of the impact, but it was so dangerous from Fainberg-Mngomezulu. Moreover, the inconsistency is incredibly frustrating. Irish ill-discipline in crazy first half. That aside, in what was a difficult game to referee where there were plenty of incidents, we don't have too many issues about the other big calls, although James Ryan was perhaps fortunate to escape a permanent red card. Quite simply, Andy Farrell's side were just physically overwhelmed, which led to ill-discipline and some needless mistakes. Even Ryan's indiscretion came because South Africa were controlling the contact area and making turnovers. The Ireland lock saw Malcolm Marx, one of their best fetchers, searching for the ball and decided to take action, but it cost him and his side. Prendergast, Crowley, Porter and Paddy McCarthy also followed him off the field, albeit temporarily, as Ireland found themselves down to 12 men at one stage. Prendergast was sin-binned following a series of team infringements while Porter and McCarthy were being munched in the scrum, leading to their yellows. Crowley's, however, was utterly brainless and cynical as he knocked the ball out of Reinach's hands while out of the game in the ruck. It was akin to Cody Taylor's yellow card for the All Blacks against England and made it even more difficult for the Irish either side of the interval. Springboks' power. As already intimated, Ireland were not necessarily architects of their own downfall, as the pressure South Africa exerted had a large say in many of those sin binnings. You could certainly not criticize the hosts' intensity or their desire to impose themselves, but the Springboks are quite simply on another level to everyone else at the moment. To counteract it, they pushed the boundaries too far and were subsequently punished. It was 80 minutes of sheer dominance from the tourists, and it is to the Irishmen's credit and their desperation in defense that the scoreline was not bigger. The Springboks may have expanded their game and brought through running and creative talents like Feinberg Ngomzulu and Conan Moody to complement their incredible power. But it is all about that ridiculous starting forward eight and the bomb squad that follows later in the game. Once again, that scrum was an absolute machine as Bone Venter, Marks and Thomas du Toit, and then Gerhard Steenekamp and Wilco Lau got to work on the Ireland front row. Behind them, the brilliant Eben Etzebeth gave way to the similarly excellent R.G. Snyman, while in the back row, Sia Colisi, Pieter Steph du Toit and Jasper Weiss rarely dropped below world-class standards. Du Toit in particular was again immense and put in 80 minutes of insane work rate. The other two were replaced in the second period, but that enabled them to bring on the irrepressible Quagga Smith and their hybrid player Andre Esterhuizen, who is equally capable up front or behind the scrum. The Springboks have just got it right on all levels. Springboks clear at the top. The ending to the game might have been more tense than they would have liked, and Erasmus will be frustrated by their profligacy. But South Africa have shown that they are in a league of their own at the moment. Whether it was the record victory over the All Blacks, the triumph in France despite being down to 14 men, or this success in Dublin, they have beaten almost all of their rivals. Granted, England's improvement needs to be noted, and Steve Borthwick's men could have a decent claim of being the second-best team in the world, but you feel that they have a bit of a way to go to match what the Springboks are currently doing. With this victory, they have stretched their lead in the world rankings and have guaranteed top spot going into 2026. They are quite simply clear of the rest.